Okay, we're still waiting for a couple of people to join us on stage. It might take a couple of minutes, but I propose that we can jump straight into our conversation for today. So essentially, we're talking about top 15. Chen Yu is here with us. Hello, hello. And I think we're still waiting for Arnold to join us in a couple of minutes. So essentially, we're talking about top 5 consumption trends in China, top 15. And at the first 30 minutes, we're going to have a panel discussion here on stage, and then we're going to invite our phenomenal audience to raise their hands, join us on stage, contribute, and ask questions, of course. And I would like to start with all of us here on stage doing a very quick 15-second, literally 2-3 sentences introduction of who we are, and also highlighting which one trend in China are we contributing to. For instance, I'm going to start. My name is Ashley. I'm the founder of a China digital agency and an education center focused on digital marketing. I am contributing to guilt-free economy in China, which means you purchase products that are good for you, good for environment, and good for society. Okay, Lee, what about you?
Hey, thank you guys for having me up here today. I grew up in Chongqing when I brought at a young age, and I'm interested in particular social and cultural trends in China. That was my previous work, and also some work experience in Chinese tech, Chinese big tech. The trend that I will be talking about today is the popularization of domestic Chinese brands. Woo!
I am Peggy Liu, and I live in Shanghai. I'm known as China's Green Goddess because I'm an environmentalist. I've been doing that. I've been contributing to the greening of China trend, I guess, since 2006.
Hi, I'm Chen Yu, and also known as 苹果姐姐. I work with a lot of different lifestyle brands, so I will be sharing, contributing to She Economy and the Guochao. I think some parts overlapping with what Lee is going to talk about.
Super exciting. Awesome stuff. In order to set the stage, first of all, I would like to invite our audience to definitely follow our phenomenal panelists here on stage. If you're not following them yet, you shall be. Chen Yu and Li are phenomenal consumer experts, and Peggy is the center of gravity of everything China related on Clubhouse. So if you're not following them yet, do that right now and make sure that you click a bell as well. Also, I would like to mention that we have just recently started the China Club. So just above our icons, you will see the little China and then house. So this is the China Club. Do join it as well. So we host rooms about business, about culture, about food, about all first-hand experience China topics there as well. Definitely become a member and join us. Let's start with reviewing some of the top trends. So the top 5 trends, according to a whole collection of experts in China right now, are number 1, the Guochao economy. Right, so everybody essentially is looking into something produced in China, something that links with Chinese culture. Then number 2, eating habits and food preferences, so health economy. And then we have home economy or stay-at-home economy, right? So after COVID-19, people essentially prefer to hang out at home and replicate some of their external experiences, like going to the bar or going to the gym, replicate that at home. Then there is sleep economy, so essentially people go to bed much later, and sometimes they have troubles falling asleep. And the final one is blind box economy. So out of these 5, let's start with these 5 first. Ladies, any of these 5 top 5 consumption trends actually hit close to home? Any insight or experience that you have from China that you would like to share with us? Please jump in.
Hey, Arnold.
Hey, Ashley. Hey, Peggy. How's it going?
Yay, and Arnold is here with us. Hello.
Yay. Oh my God,
hey.
I'm just laughing though at Ashley's sleep economy, going to bed much later, because I basically
do you sleep, Peggy? Do you sleep?
I know people always ask me, do I sleep? I really just I do rolling naps because I work globally and across different time zones. So And then I went to MIT, where it was sort of cool to never sleep. So I don't think I've ever, and then I had 2 kids. And then when you have 2 kids, you don't really sleep either, especially if you breastfeed. So, I mean, I'm just trying to think, the only time I really got normal sleep was after my kids went to boarding school. And, but then I was traveling. So then I would only sleep on airplanes. I don't know.
Peggy, first of all, you must be way too young to have kids. I don't believe you have kids.
What? Arnold, are you kidding me?
What?
I'm 52. I
What?
Have,
no way.
I have a 16-year-old and an almost 18-year-old kid.
Peggy,
Oh my
you're
God.
17 and not a day older. 17 and not
honestly,
a day.
I didn't know that. Oh, I thought you were in your 30s. So
No,
you must be doing something right.
Oh my God, that picture is the InStyle photoshopped picture, by the way. It's I mean, number one, most magazine articles and pictures are all, oops, this is my go join Ashley, hurry up phone. Yeah, I mean, so number one, well, okay, I do look young, I'm not going to lie. People always,
I was going to say, I've seen you in videos where...
Yeah, I do look young.
Also.
Yeah. But I mean, I think number one, Qigong helps, which I think is a trend. If I just go back to I'm not trying to duck the age thing, but to go back to the trend, wellness is a really big trend. So people don't talk about it directly, but spirituality is a really big trend in China. They use different words like brain health for children, but they're really schools for remote viewing with the third eye, right? Intimacy, relationship building. But, really it's about, connecting human to human, heart to heart. It's a lot of sound healing, right? But then it's innovation and music and art therapy. But, they use all these other words for it, but really I see a big trend that wasn't in the chart that you gave me, Ashley, is spirituality, right? We use all these other Trojan words, but that's a big one that we should talk about, because mental health is such a big thing with Asian people, or lack of mental health. And I think a lot of it has to do with no sleep. Because there's 996. I don't know if Chiming has this issue if you're in London, but it's a big problem, right? And I don't think 996 is actually the right numbers, really. It's like 13, 13, 13 or something.
It's 10, 10, 7.
It's also not restricted to China, right? And I think it happens in most tech companies. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, apparently Facebook and Amazon is even worse. So I think it's just globally, just a trend that we're seeing, which is not great, not good at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think mental health, number one, I think it starts from Gaokao, right? Like, you don't sleep studying for the college entrance exam. And I don't know where it starts, but it just it doesn't end. So I think the sleep economy and everything economy, the health economy, right? All this med tech, like the AI, biotech, cool stuff that's happening in Hainandao, right? Like that's the whole island. That's one of their big things. The stuff that Chen Yu is going to talk about sustainable lifestyle, plant-based foods, all of it is around, we don't treat ourselves well. So we're just falling apart at the seams. Anyway.
And do you feel, Peggy, that right now more and more people are actively aware about that in China, and are actually doing something about it? Because I still remember, let's say 10 years ago, right? When there was this yoga concept on the rise globally. And in China, virtually people felt that, yoga, this voodoo stuff, like you wouldn't even do yoga. And then right now, obviously yoga is, in any mainstream gym Or when you talk about mindfulness, right? Also, people felt that, oh, God, this, mindfulness is basically just some voodoo dancing. But right now, as you said, a lot of international schools, for example, they do have classes where kids are sitting in circle with their eyes closed, and they are, wishing well to, I don't know, the people in their life, and, counting their blessings, etc. So do you feel that the awareness is there, and society as a whole in China is actually acting on it?
It's interesting. I think Chen Yu has a lot more to say on yoga than me, because I can't touch my toes, and she's always in these like Lululemon photo shoots and stuff. But that's not me. I once tried to be like an ambassador for Nike, and like I took these photos of me like with some woman in Shanghai that is like the Rocky of but of women, right? Like she literally lives in Shanghai. And I was like, this is so not me. I'm like not aligned at all in wearing Nike clothes, boxing. But anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, you know what I think is really interesting is the government is putting in all these policies because the kids are studying too hard. So like little kids in preschool are not allowed to study hardcore subjects like math or something, because they don't want their little brains to fry. So the government realizes that Chinese kids are burning out. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I mean, I think also, I don't know if you guys heard, they recently proposed in the 2 sessions, they're splitting up the Gokul into 2 years, right? So similar to in the UK, we have AS and A levels. I'm hoping maybe that's a reason, an action for them to try and fix some of those symptoms of people just like you said earlier, studying in the day and then doing night schools at night. And yeah, it's so much pressure, right? And on the back of your question as well, Ashley, I think it's really interesting. I always call it like a cultural realignment, because I think it's only really been over the last 30, 40 years when China's economy has been growing at a ridiculous rate that people have forgotten important stuff like mental and physical health and well-being, and just putting health above everything else. And Chinese culture, like for thousands of years, has always really valued mental and physical health, and always like health number one. That saying, like I can't remember what exactly it's like, 身体是革命的本钱 or something like that, right? Like basically your body is the basis for everything you do in life. So yeah, I think it's really only the last couple of decades that this has happened, and I'm hoping that over the next couple of decades, people will start to realize there's more important things in life than just working insane hours, even though I think we all do it anyway.
This is gorgeous. Awesome. Chen Yu, go ahead.
Right, I'm just echoing what Peggy and Arnold are saying. Actually, the after pandemic, people are putting more emphasis on personal health. So my friend actually, he has a furniture company in Shunde, Guangdong, and their whole philosophy is about chemical-free furniture, and that was on the rise last year, as well as domestic travel to scenic and remote villages to be able to breathe fresh air. I think there is definitely increasing interest and action in kind of getting close to nature. And as what Peggy mentioned, the spiritual awakening and spirituality, and I think a lot about the consumer trends, about Xi economy, about the sleep economy and others. Actually, the foundation is about spiritual needs, right? If we talk, if we look at when people are fulfilled with the products and with physical things, they want something more for their spirit. So the products around that are actually quickly picking up, like in the women's kind of products that have strength and help build confidence and things like that. Okay, I just finished.
That's awesome. Lee, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, sorry guys, I think we all jumped in at the same time. That clearly was way too exciting for all of us. I think it's interesting talking about this idea of physical health versus, I agree that since the pandemic, we've seen a surge in attractiveness towards physical health practice such as yoga, and we see this huge trend of following with fitness clothing, athleisure, Lululemon, etc. I will say though that mental health, I think we are still far behind it being a real trend in China. At least the people that I'm seeing, and maybe the people that that's in my network don't quite have the access that they're looking for. But I do see the manifestation of it into very practical aspects of investing into escape. And I'm going to use this as a way to go back to Ashley's question earlier about consumer trends. And one of the consumer trends that she mentioned was about indoor economy, right, Ashley? Like about being inside.
Yeah, stay at home. Right? Stay at home economy.
Stay at home. That's right. That's your phrasing. Stay at home economy. And I want to talk a little bit about stay at home economy. What does it mean? And I don't want you guys to take these two phrasings in the wrong way, but I think it comes down to an aspect which is laziness, another aspect which is playfulness. And these two things may seem contradictory, but I think when we especially look at Gen Z, those who are below the age of 24, let's say, because of the huge amount of pressure that they're under at work and how little amount of emotional support that's getting from the network or from their families around them, being at home, staying indoors and getting services delivered to their home is a massive trend right now. And when they're at home and they're receiving these services, they find the comfort to be able to then be playful. And what does that playful transform itself into is we see a surge in anime. We see that, for example, for Gen Z, 80% plus now use BillyBilly to watch long-form videos. We see a huge amount of subscription for Korean drama platforms, right? Playfulness also translates itself into those below the age of 24 prefer to have a cat at home. It's interesting because Gen Z are becoming much more pet-friendly, but they don't want to have dogs because they don't want to walk them. They want to be able to pet them at home. So this is a contrast when you look at the statistics between those who are below the age of 24 and those who are in between 24 and 30, right? So what else does that look at? So what else could we look at when we look at this combination of laziness and playfulness when young people choose to stay at home? We also see that there's a surge in online study. So we see that there's a surge, especially during COVID, in exploring online study tools, language tools, knowledge tools. And I think this is a really interesting conversation, because when we talk about physical health, mental health, and the restriction that COVID has shown us that it's possible, that kind of erects itself in our lives, how can we bring aspects of physical health and mental health into our homes? And I do have a few examples, but I will stop talking because I'm sure people want to jump in and comment on things.
Can I also say, though, that, during COVID, yes, we had a lot of needs to stay at home. But now that everything is open, there's a massive trend to new nightclubs, new restaurants. As Chenyu will talk about, domestic travel. So now I think there's the opposite trend as well that we can explore. I know definitely in Shanghai, there's a huge surge in new nightclubs. That one just opened up on my block, which is awesome. And just like the top level restaurants are doing really, really well. Who knows for how long, maybe until international overseas travel opens up. But yeah, they're doing really well. And C-Trips, Jane, CEO, was talking at the, I think, Fortune or Forbes Most Successful Women dinner, like domestic travel is surging. So I think everything is surging in China, period. That's the trend, Ashley. Everything's up, surging.
I love the trend. That's why we're here. That's why people are learning about trends within the market where everything is surging.
Yes.
I love it. Chenyu, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to echo what Peggy mentioned about domestic travel, giving you a real example from today. Like today, I was in a remote village in southern Zhejiang, very small village. There is like tourist attraction, and the cap for limitation is 700 people for that place due to COVID. And I was there at 10 a.m. and it was meeting the cap already. And I saw buses of senior people coming from Shanghai, and they were already packing the place on a Tuesday morning. So I was really shocked. It just shows how booming the Chinese domestic travel has been. Of course, there is a senior people in a bus, but also there are so many people who choose to go on road trips. People now exploring the northwest and southwest part of China that's explored in the past. So it's really exciting to see what's happening in China with travel, because for almost 2 years, when people cannot go outside, it really changes people's habit, because before many people just try to escape during every May holiday and October holiday to go to Bali, go to Japan, go to other Europe. Now, when they are forced to stay in China, they get to see, oh, actually Yunnan is so beautiful, and actually there's so many different parts of China to explore. I think that's going to really shift how Chinese people travel in the future as well. So just want to share that. Thanks.
Thank you, Shengyu. I just want to thank Lee earlier. I really liked your anecdotes about playfulness and laziness. Just for the benefit of the audience, I want to expand a bit on BillyBilly and just let everyone know that it's I'm super bullish on BillyBilly in 2021. I think their daily active users is quite low at the moment. I think it's under 100 million still. Low in China numbers, not the rest of the world, but they've been growing quarter on quarter for 40 to 50% for the last couple of quarters now, maybe even before that, but I know at least last couple of quarters. So anyone looking to reach a Gen Z millennial audience who are into ACG, anime, comics, gaming, should definitely look at BillyBilly. And also just to add on Chongyu's point as well, 100% agree that China's travel is opened up for quite a while, actually, again, for the benefit of everyone in the audience. Even I think during National Day last year, the year-on-year numbers were actually higher last year than the year before. But one thing that people are doing now is they're staying in more higher-end hotels or kind of 4-star plus, because they're worried about the cleanliness around the hotels for anything lower because of COVID and the pandemic. So that's an interesting trend. Because we work in the hotel sector, I thought I'd share that. Thank you, guys.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. So let's look at the some of the trends that we have not yet covered. What about our Guochao? I know for sure. Was it Li or Chenyu? Somebody wanted to talk about Guochao economy.
Yeah, I just quickly jump off of this, and then Chenyu, feel free to take this wherever you want it to go. I think what we are seeing in Guochao right now is actually a beautiful combination of individuals who have chased or, for example, been swept up in certain trends online. And then now, as Peggy mentioned earlier, as COVID has come to an end fingers crossed. Sorry, I don't want to jinx it for everybody. But yeah, let's say, possibly coming to an end here in China over the next year or so, people going offline traveling. So let me give you an example. Handful. For Gen Z in particular, what I've seen over the last year is a huge amount of social media content distributed by brands across Chinese social media communities and platforms around handful, right, traditional Chinese clothing, and super popular and much loved, and huge surge of interest on Taobao as well. And then now what we're seeing is these young people who've been collecting these handful and sitting at home and browsing online are now finally getting the opportunity to venture out and perhaps go to, the deserts of Jiangsu to be able to put their makeup from, Perfect Diary together with their handful that they bought from this merchant that they've been working with on Taobao, and build these beautiful moments that they can then reshare on, new platforms such as QQ Space, which is also a big trend for Gen Z. So I want to mention a little bit about what Ashley talked about, which is Guochao. So I personally feel that the interest and the growth of interest in the area of domestic brands primarily comes from those who are below the age of 24 and those who are above the age of 40 to 45-ish. And I say this because we've seen some huge brand collaborations over the last couple of years that started to pick up this trend that I think really in 2018, 2019. But in the last 1 or 2 years, we're really seeing brands like Li-Ning, a clothing retail brand like Li-Ning, really pushing through by leading the conversation around the osmosis of traditional Chinese values in contemporary China today. And we're now seeing brands like Converse jumping onto the back of the Guochao, the domestic growth branding, and working with KOLs to release their own kind of traditional Chinese line that's within their brand. And I think I could talk about this forever because this is one of my favorite topics, but I will stop for now and let Cheng-Li share some of her thoughts. I hope I segued that for you, Cheng-Li. I don't know if it was okay.
Yes, I really loved what you shared, Lee. I wanted to add a little bit about what I saw in Jingdezhen. I think people know Jingdezhen as the capital of ceramics. It's what Marco Polo, when he came to China in Yuan Dynasty, he brought back China to Europe and become very popular there. In the past, Jingdezhen was just a factory of China, and it's like pretty generic design that's not so like kind of as creative. But now I just went to visit Jingdezhen like 2 months ago, and there are 30,000 like artists, modern artists and craftsmen there, and they bring all the modern aesthetics, and they really make amazing products there. In the past, there is a popular platform called Yitiao. They always sell Japanese products and ceramics and potteries, and now they're selling China, made in China crafts. So I think that's just another sign of how China has changed. I think it's a benefit from a lot of people who have studied abroad, who have really acquired modern aesthetics, design, and they're now back in China. A lot of times in the past, the foreign brands they were already made in China, but they have what the advantage is coming from branding and marketing, storytelling. Now, actually, China entrepreneurs and artists and craftsmen are already equipped with the storytelling ability and the aesthetics and the design. So I think it's really the golden age for made in China to crafted in China. The search for domestic brands coming in the next decades or so. Just a few cents.
I'm going to say it's ironic to me, though, that a lot of these surges in Chinese brands are actually shaped by expats and international folks. So, for example, Jingdezhen, the woman, Caroline, right? She lives in Hong Kong. She travels all over the world. She's very global citizen, right? Even though she's CCCP, she writes white papers. She's like one of the top people who input policies for the national government. But she worked with people like, very expat leading trend makers to create that whole apprenticeship program, which I think they recruited you for, Chinyu, right? Where they lured young artists there and then created a live stream, especially in the last year or so with COVID, live stream street fairs, if you will, right? To make it really cool. And now they're doing things like trying to figure out how to take crushed old ceramics to make recycled home textiles. Caroline just showed me that. She was very proud. So, but she's not what I would consider native, only native. Let me put it that way. And then I'm working with a very large luxury brand, cosmetics, And, they take 2 years to do any type of product development, but it's a woman who was imported from New York, and it's a new positioning to put the global head of product development worldwide in Shanghai, right? So she's a white, Fifth Avenue type of standard New Yorker who is now on purpose transplanted into Shanghai to develop more Chinese brands. And so I think, yes, there's a surge in domestic brands, but the shaping of it is by people who are very global. So, for example, TX, the innovative retail concept, like mall. And I think TX is one name, and it also has YES, like Young Energy System or something like that. I mean, that's done by the guy who headed Shanghai's Xingtiandi, and Richard Xu, who started TEDx Shanghai, and his wife Frances. But honestly, they're not native. They're like global 11 country type of people. So there's that. So there is this interesting, ironic paradox, right? It deserves looking at in terms of who is shaping these trends.
Beautiful. I agree that indeed there's a lot of intertwining kind of trends. For instance, when we talk about, Chinese brands, if we talk about fashion or high fashion, remember how Shanghai Town was created by a foreigner that worked for a global luxury brand and then lived in Greater China for many, many years. And basically, essentially, Shanghai Town was created for foreigners that appreciate Chinese culture. And then it became loved, by some Chinese. And then, of course, Chinese brands also developed to learn, stuff. So it all doesn't happen in isolation, and we're essentially all learning from each other. But I totally agree that right now, the sense of beauty and the expression of, Chinese artists and Chinese fashion manufacturers and all other kind of domestic brands, it's quite remarkable. Quality is very often good as well. Sometimes it's a bit lower, sometimes it's a bit higher. And storytelling, as Lee and Chanyu has also mentioned, storytelling is also becoming better and better each year. Guys, we're going to move on right now, and we're going to start taking your questions. I'm going to open a hand raising function right now. It's going to be open to everyone. So if you have a question to this amazing panel, please raise your hand. Let's move on to Amir. Amir, you're up on stage. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you again, and really amazing to be part of a high-quality discussion. Myself, I'm a venture capitalist. I'm heading Infinity Group and doing investment in China and Israel in the last 20 years, both RMB funds, US dollar funds. And one of our companies that actually my son is a major player in is called Y China. It's kind of Wygoran, media company. We're doing short videos showing the foreign point of view of Chinese life in Chinese by foreigners. The platform has gone very popular. It received investment from Weibo and deals with ByteDance and the major brands in China and globally. This morning we had a discussion, which I thought to ask your opinion about it. What is the trend now post-COVID on clients, the language? What is really happening in reality on the ground? And one of the key answers for this discussion was everything is getting practical, less about the brands, more about results. Results when it's a B2B language, or also when it comes to B2C. Also the consumer themselves, what they want to see is quality of service, fast, not necessarily the brand. Brand always have the powers. And I was wondering, since I saw the room is about 15 consumption trends, is this correct? Are we in a more practical level, which means more brands, less about size, a different level? So that's my question, and then I have something about Clubhouse to say later.
Thank you, Amir. Anybody on the panel? So my few cents would be China has always been extremely pragmatic market. And I think that results are always important. China is also overflooded with options. And there are domestic options, international options. Chinese consumers are very spoiled. They are extremely sophisticated, which is beautiful. And they're also moving very fast. So do they want results? Do they want cheap or reasonable prices? Do they want great quality? And yes. I would say that the standards have definitely increased, and this the standard for the brand to impress has increased because everybody's just upping their game. But I don't think that it's just about results and brands don't matter because it's just about being pragmatic. I think brands matter like never before. And everybody within the market, doesn't matter, first tier cities in the south or lower tier cities in the north, everybody's going through some sort of consumption premiumization, in my experience.
Hey, Amir, good to see you. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Good, awesome. Can I just clarify the question? Do you mean results in the sense of like content creating commercial results for the clients, or as in like the results of the brand providing better service or better products to the clients, to the customers?
The latter one, that when you have to plan your budget or where you focus your KPI, you will less focus on marketing the brand itself. You will focus more on practical elements.
Okay.
There is a window, and also there is a window of opportunity to smaller brands who will give better practical elements to the consumer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. So I'm actually on the other side of this argument, because I honestly believe that even now, I think definitely in 2020, and that's why we had a lot of success. We invested heavily in branding and content because there was increased demand for content on platforms because of lockdown, but there was like a reduction of content produced by creators and brands. So if you combine those two things, you have like a really good sweet spot of effectiveness and efficiency from content versus the money that you spend on it. But also at the same time, I think during pandemic, it's okay. Yeah. So there's a couple of things, right? The first thing is I think it's actually better to focus more on top of funnel awareness, brand building, and kind of like creating stuff that the audience want during a pandemic, rather than trying to sell us something directly and maybe focus too much on the pragmatic side, because people are less receptive, I think, to direct messaging during times like these, and more to like evocative brand building messaging. So I actually think it's probably better and maybe more effective for your money to spend on that now and building your community, especially on platforms like Douyin and BillyBilly and Xiaohongshu. These are like growth platforms, and there's probably no better time than now to invest in them. Once you have the community, you can then focus a bit more on talking about your service, your products, and all the things that you're doing to make their lives easier and more convenient. That's just my two cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold. And Amir, we will have to move ahead. If you have additional questions, we'll have to come back to it later, because we literally have 12 minutes and 3 people more on stage. Is that fine?
Of course.
Awesome.
Follow the club. Follow the club for the next one that Ashley throws. She throws great parties on here. So follow the China.
The whole club is awesome. So definitely do follow the club. Let's move on to John. John, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How's everyone?
Woo-hoo!
Great. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Hey, I'll be brief so that we can get to the next couple folks. My group, we're global researchers in smart cities, and we focus on solving the gaps within governments, but really our bigger picture is actually solving consumer problems. And what's interesting about this topic, in the way you guys set things up, was actually splitting trends by age groups or categories. So that's very exciting. So I'm trying to learn from what you guys are doing, what you guys mentioned, what the current trends are for post-COVID, because we're developing our own communities here in the U.S. So I'll put myself on mute and hope that my question's clear.
I wasn't quite sure what the question was. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to go too quick. Here's the question: is that the trends you guys mentioned and talked about by demographics, are the trends likely to continue after COVID, the initial phase of COVID's over?
We're already over COVID here in China. So yeah, like everything that we're talking about now, like we're over COVID.
Well, I mean, here's one example. You talked about a trend is domestic travel. I imagine the consumers and the people who I know, I've been in China for 6 years, so I've got not a large network, but I've got a network of people, and they won't travel strictly because they do not want to be quarantined if they have to go overseas, for example. So, once the world's back to norm, is that likely going to be a continued trend where domestic travel is going to be a trend? And I'm not concerned about, I am concerned about China, but I'm concerned about what these trends be global.
I do think that this is going to be a trend because what's happening is it's really pushing the quality level of domestic tourism up, So does that make sense? So there's so much attention now, whether it's being pushed by the national government to say, hey, to be independent of international ties, right, in the supply chain or in tech, or domestic tourism, because there's so much more. It's really pushing the need to differentiate, to up-level your brand, not just a product, but a city. So I think that level of quality, the increase in quality, is going to make it just much more attractive to go to do more domestic tourism. That's my personal prognostication.
Yeah, I actually agree, and I just want to break down what Peggy just said about quality of travel and why I personally believe it's going to continue to be a very strong trend in China. The relationship between the local government, the digital platforms that allow you to secure things like social content as well as payment, for example, C-Trip, Peggy mentioned this one earlier, or just WeChat in general, the ecosystem WeChat has, the relationship that these two players now possess with direct consumers as well as the merchants or the sites or basically the ticket holders, whether it's a theater or whether it's a hiking ground. And Chen Yu earlier mentioned some examples as well of traveling locations. This relationship between these stakeholders have beautifully intertwined itself into almost a seamless journey for users. And I think Chinese consumers who are looking to travel post-COVID are going to continuously compare this quality of local domestic experience to their international experience, which I don't think is on par. And back to what Ashley said earlier, Chinese consumers are spoiled for choice right now and are rather demanding. So as a combination, I think whether it's right now or in the next 18 months or so, domestic tourism will continue to increase in demand.
Absolutely. Hope that this answered John's question. And we are going to move on to Bill. Bill, welcome on stage.
Hi, thank you. I'm in China, and I want to share some information and ask one question. So now the Chinese government have stated that the Chinese people have the income avenue over 10,000 US dollar for every people, average. And maybe in Shanghai, in Shenzhen, in Beijing, it is 20,000 in this big city. And actually, I see some members, the lectures good things selling globally in China is 1/3 of the global selling for the lectures, customer and other things. And I think it is very, I think because this, I think the United States maybe have 40,000 US dollar for the average for every avenue. And I also see some member of the Starbucks. Starbucks have 3,000 shop in China, and maybe in United States it's 4,000. maybe 5,000. So I think it is very weird, because I think that coffee is not the traditional drinking of the Chinese. However, the Starbucks have a great successful to promote these products, their products in China. So
thank you, Bill. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have a question based on that?
Here is the things. Do you think that the products with good marketing or brand is the key point that this company has a win? Because like the LVMH and also the Starbucks. So I think that the other things is not successful, like something like the fitness. I mean, fitness industry, the Chinese fitness industry is a shit. It is just 60,000 gym in China, but the tuna, you know that it is a kind of massage. It's a 2 million shop in China. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your question. So the question essentially is, what do we think is the main factor for international brands to be successful in China? Is it the brand? Like in Starbucks' case, even though coffee is not traditionally Chinese a drink, and LVMH, because again, they have strong brand, or is it something else? I personally believe that, Chinese people love quality. Chinese people love a good story. Chinese people, love exploring. And it's also, as, when it comes to LVMH, it's also a status thing. So traditionally, let's say 2015, 10 years ago, it was very status driven. Same with Starbucks. When I just came to China, it was back in 2005, 2006. Going to Starbucks was like the coolest thing ever. I mean, you're walking with a cup of Starbucks tea, or I do not know, you're eating some cake or muffin from Starbucks, and you feel like $1 million. You feel like you're in a Hollywood movie. So that was a status. It was funny, but it was a status statement. The same with McDonald's, by the way, for our audience out there that wasn't in China back in the day. You wouldn't know, but people would queue up. The same thing in Russia. I was born in the Russian and Soviet Union. So McDonald's only researched Russia longer than China before launching in that market. They researched Russia for 11 years. And then when they finally opened, there were literally queues for days. People queued up to go, to try this burger, to try the shake, etc., etc. So I believe it's a combination of the right time, the right positioning, the fact that it is, somehow status driven, and it doesn't need to be super high end, but it says something about you. Plus, storytelling, etc., that makes any brand successful, be it international or domestic.
Thanks, Ashley. I agree with you 100%. Bill, hey, how are you? Good to see you again. I just want to add a few quick things because we're short on time. But the first thing I think is that localization of product is really important in China, and you see that with global brands like KFC and McDonald's. I actually just mentioned now, but they have like very specific products for China, and the way they execute locally is also super different. Like KFC did a fashion line with Karl Lagerfeld, which is insane. Like they wouldn't do that anywhere else except for China. The second thing I think is connect to the first thing is like how they reflect their global brand proposition locally in China. So Allbirds did this really well. When they released in China first, they released like a line of shoelaces. They always release limited edition like trainers globally, but in China they did like limited edition line which reflected all the different heritage sites of China, and Chinese fans just went kind of crazy over it because it was limited edition and it was very kind of nationalistic. So yeah, those are my 2 quick points. Thank you, Bill, for the question.
By the way, Chen Yu is like hooked up with Allbirds. Thank you, Chen Yu, for my Allbirds. I have to say...
Oh, wow, that's awesome, Chen Yu. I love that brand.
Yeah, they came over and... anyway, that's a whole different story. So, Bill, I just want to say, during COVID, I experimented with a lot of this EMS stuff that your balance tech, electric muscle stimulation... Your brand is a lot cooler. It's like, you did a really good job with branding, etc. But on Taobao, there's all this, like... really, really cheap, like 贴片 or, like sticky stuff. It's not like a whole beautifully branded outfit that you're selling. So I think the only thing that really differentiates Taobao sort of like really cheap stuff from your stuff is the KOLs and the KOCs, right? So that's a totally different new retail method of selling stuff than the outside China, as far as I can see. And, you know, I sort of got a lesson in marketing by a top agent and an agency. The KOLs, right, are sort of our Kim Kardashians, and then KOCs are sort of like the lead mommy tai in a crowd or something. And so, you know, they're not quite celebrities, but they're really, really influential. I think really that's what differentiates brands in China. It really like one Taobao, you know, EMS Tiepian is like from another's. There's no difference, right? Perfect Diary. I mean, I haven't tried it yet, but there's like so much cheap makeup in China. So what?
It's totally different two kind of products. Yes, actually the Hobot EMS is more professional, and it is used by the EU people in around 20 years. Okay, and thank you for notice that we are doing this kind of products.
Yeah, no, I would totally try your stuff. But I mean, honestly, for Chinese people, the normal second tier, third tier, fourth tier, it's really just KOL, KOC driven marketing and new retail, I think. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.